Good morning, Meet the GMAT members, and thank you very much for attending this webinar today on pursuing an MBA in Europe. First of all, I would like to thank our partner, Beat the GMAT, for hosting this webinar. Let me introduce myself. My name is Sarah Meskell. I am in charge of recruitment and admissions for the full-time one-year MBA program at ESSEC Business School, a French business school with campuses located both in Paris, France, and in Singapore in Asia. So what I would like to do today is give you a brief presentation on the MBA market in Europe and why you might like to consider pursuing your postgraduate studies in Europe. And afterwards, I will also briefly present ESSEC Business School and our full-time MBA program. You're more than welcome to ask questions at any time. I'd be very happy to answer any other questions regarding admissions, or if you seek any type of advice, generally regarding your MBA studies. So again, thank you very much for your time, and let's get started. So, as you can see, I first wanted to share with you just a map of Europe, again for you to bear in mind how diverse a continent Europe is, with all these countries very close to each other, and so a tremendous opportunity for us Europeans to gain that cultural awareness that a lot of other continents envy, I would say. First of all, I'd like to start with a few facts and figures regarding Europe, so that you better understand maybe the advantages of studying in a region like Europe. Europe is approximately 50 countries, the biggest country in Europe being Russia, which takes up close to 40% of the continent, and the smallest state in Europe is Vatican City, as some of you must know. Population-wise, Europe holds 733 million inhabitants, so just slightly twice the size of the United States. In terms of economy, Europe is the largest economy in the world. Again, in comparison to North America, we have 32 trillion assets under management, where North America has 27.1 trillion. Languages spoken, yet again, to prove the diversity in this continent, over 70 languages spoken. And if you look just at the EU, the European Union, which makes up for 28 countries, just a reminder of what a great opportunity it is to do business in Europe, because this open political space enables people to freely move around, and so again it makes for great business opportunities. Now, if we look at the MBA market in Europe and the current trends we have seen in the past years, of course, historically, MBAs, I mean, the MBA market has been much bigger in the US, and traditionally people looked toward the United States to pursue graduate studies when it came to business. But in the past 5 to 8 years, we have seen a growing number of applicants coming to Europe and sending applications to Europe. The number of applicants we see in recent years, in 2012 and 2013, are over 90,000. So in the past, I would say 5 years, it has doubled to tripled. I think it's important to understand that we also see more Europeans considering their postgraduate studies in Europe, whereas they also used to go to the US much more. Actually, the number of West Europeans applying to US programs has dropped from 43% to 28% in the past 8 years. And we see an increasing number of course, of non-European students also coming to Europe. Asian students, North American students, students also from Latin America, from the Middle East, from Africa. If you look at the most popular destinations, mainly you will see that the UK attracts many students. France, of course, Germany, Spain, the Netherlands and Switzerland would be the preferred destinations. Another few elements for the background. Another trend we see is that the average age of MBA students in Europe is slightly higher than in North America, and that is mainly due to the fact that the programs being shorter. European programs tend to attract professionals more than recent graduates. So you will see in most European MBA programs that the average work experience again tends to be much higher, and will probably you might not be eligible for these MBA programs if you don't hold at least, I would say, 2 to 3 maybe years work experience, and that would not be the case in the US, where younger students might go straight into their postgraduate studies after graduating with a bachelor's. Another interesting element I think is the diversity. The cultural diversity, and I think for a lot of North American candidates, those who come to Europe definitely value the cultural diversity, and I think that's often something they bring back with them. But again, I think, you know, they're different. It's going to be a different learning experience, so it's very important that you compare all your options and that you look at basically the reasons why you are pursuing an MBA. Look at your career goals, assess the different opportunities, and you'll naturally choose the option that you think is best for you. One last thing I think is worth mentioning, a lot of European business schools have closely worked with companies worldwide when defining the content of their MBA programs, and it comes across that more and more companies are looking for people who have managers who have cultural awareness and are capable of I would say managing multicultural teams, of addressing different markets, of having, you know, that ability maybe to adapt. So I think in that regard, an education in Europe will give you those skills, will give you that experience, and will help you broaden your horizons. Now, if we look at the reasons to pursue an MBA in Europe, and I've tried to mainly summarize what people, I mean, when we ask our graduates what they valued most during their time spent with us, and when you look as well at the different research that has been published on, you know, why people are looking at pursuing their graduate studies in Europe more and more, the first thing that is often cited is the fact that you can graduate within 10 months for the shorter programs, 10 to 18 months, whereas in the US, of course, programs tend to be longer. Again, I think it very much depends on what type of experience, the nature of the experience you're looking for. I think if you are in need of gaining further work experience, then it's probably better for you to look at the 2-year programs, because they will offer you the opportunity to do a longer internship, and I think, you know, in that case it's probably reasonable to go toward a 2-year program. However, there are great advantages, of course, of pursuing a 1-year program, and I think in this day and age, with things changing so quickly in the job market, a lot of people realize that they can't really afford to spend 2 full years out of the job market. So, you know, returning to the workforce after 12 months is something that's often valued in today's uncertain economy. So I would say that's definitely one of the advantages of studying in Europe, is that you will graduate faster and you will get back to the job market faster. In terms of the return on investment, and I think that is something that often comes up when discussing with prospective students, of course, pursuing an MBA is a huge investment, and you really need to think about how you're going to fund this. And so if you look again at the European business schools, overall they tend to be cheaper than the US schools, mainly because you're going to be studying for a year instead of 2. The tuition and living expenses tend to be a little less. And of course you will only be out of the job market for a year, and so you'll only be losing 1 year of salary rather than 2. So I think overall definitely studies show that the opportunity cost is better in Europe. But saying that, this should not be the only element that you would be looking at when choosing a business school, because there are many other I think the criteria is much wider than just the price. Nevertheless, it's important to know. If we move on, and I think this is something that's really worth spending time on, because again, this I think really sets European MBA programs apart from the rest of the world, is the diversity you will experience in the learning environment, the international exposure you will gain, and also the possibility you will have to develop your language skills. Basically, I mean, Europe by nature is multicultural. We have a great mixture of nationalities, cultures, languages, and because of the small size, I would say, of our continent, we have the possibility to travel easily and visit the neighboring states. I mean, just to give you an example, was having a conversation with some of our current MBA students just a few days ago, and they were telling me about the trip that they undertook during the Christmas break. Within 6 days, I think they spent time in 4 different countries. They went from Paris to Barcelona, Spain, from there on to Rome in Italy, and finally went on to Vienna, Austria, and ended up in Berlin in Germany. And that's just to give you an example of the type of holiday or weekends one can spend in Europe, and it's all quite easily done. And I know that that's something that is often seen as being quite attractive to international students, both Asian students or North American students, or because you might not have the opportunity to travel so easily, I would say, in other continents. Of course, the opportunity to learn foreign languages, I think, is a great, again, can turn out to be a great asset when you graduate, because more and more international companies are looking for people with those language skills. And although most European MBAs are taught in English, you will have the opportunity to learn the local languages as well. Just as an example, here at ESSEC Business School, in our full-time MBA program, we offer French evening classes to all international students, and a lot of them actually are quite happy to do so. And I think, you know, that's the case in most European schools, so I could only encourage you, if you are to pursue your MBA studies in Europe, to take advantage of that possibility. So if we move on to building a global network, and I think again in regard to your career, this is something that is very important. If you look at the percentage of international students in European schools, it is much higher than in US schools, 83% versus 38%, which is a significant difference. And I think while studying in Europe, that's something that will really make you, I would say, move out of your comfort zone, having to work on assignments with students from all around the world, understanding how they might think differently to you, gaining that cultural awareness is something that will definitely set you apart in a global career. And if you look, I'm sure, at the companies in your domestic market, they are all nowadays doing business with countries all around the world, with the emerging countries, and so being able to spend 12 to 18 months in a class with people from Asia, the Middle East, Africa, Europe, North America, it's really going to, it's a global village. And I think definitely you will experience that in Europe much more than in many other regions. Just to give you an example as well of the diversity in the MBA programs in France or in other countries in Europe, we on average have 30 to 50 nationalities represented in our MBA programs, depending of course on the size of the cohort. The smaller cohorts might have less, 20 to 25, 30 nationalities, and the larger cohorts will have more. But that again showcases, I think, the diversity you'll be able to experience. Two other I would say benefits you may see if you are to pursue your MBA in Europe. One is, I just mentioned the cohort size. If you look again at statistics, you see that US business schools are generally larger and generally have larger intakes of students. It's more or less, the ratio is 300 to 100, 120. So what does that mean? It means that you'll see smaller classes in European business schools, and even if it's not something that we usually discuss as being, you know, the reason why you're going to choose an MBA program, it does mean that you're going to have a better quality of interaction with professors and with your fellow students. And that's certainly something that our graduates value. They tell us that, you know, being in a smaller cohort definitely increases the quality of your interaction. You have a better base for student-professor interaction. You have a better base for interaction with companies during the company visits, with guest speakers, etc., etc. So I think that's definitely something that makes the European program stand out as well. And then finally, if you look at the career prospects, because I think, you know, in most cases pursuing an MBA means that you're either looking at enhancing your career or maybe switching your career or even setting up a business. And so with that, I think the network and the career opportunities are definitely something you will be looking at. And there again, we see more and more that employers worldwide are valuing the MBA degree holders from Europe very highly. Recent surveys there again show that the placement rate is very high amongst European business school graduates. In 2012, there was a placement rate of 87%. And if you look at the salaries as well, you see that the business graduates in Europe are the highest paid in the world, slightly higher than US business graduates. So I think that covers I would say more or less what you can expect from an experience as a European student. Of course, I think other than what I've just explained here today, I think it's a great eye-opener, and I think it's a great opportunity for you to move out of your comfort zone, to go and study abroad, wherever that may be, Europe or elsewhere. So I think, you know, my best advice to you would be to look at all those opportunities, reach out to people, to students, to faculty, to graduates, and get them to tell you about their experience and how it helped them shape their career and how it helped them shape them as a person and develop both professionally and personally. And then you'll make up your mind based on that. But definitely, you know, while doing your research, speak to as many people as possible. Here at ESSEC, we're very open to putting you in contact with current students, with graduates. We have, of course, quite a few students each year from North America. And I'd be more than happy to put you in contact with those people, or even with some of our alumni. And that will definitely help you get a better understanding of what you could expect if you were to come and study in Europe. So that's it now for the first part of the presentation. Please, if you have any questions at this stage, feel free to send them in. I'd be more than happy to answer. And if not, I'll move on and tell you a bit more about ESSEC's Global MBA program. Okay, so I have a first question regarding European languages, and the question is, would knowing a European language be of significance when doing an MBA from Europe? That's a great question. Thank you very much. What I would say to that is you would have to check with each business school you were applying to, because that varies. Overall, of course, it would be an asset to already speak a European language. But for admission to an MBA program, it's not necessarily needed. At ESSEC Business School, for example, we don't require proficiency in any other language than English. But I know that some other schools will require you to speak another European language before you can graduate from their program. So that's something you should be checking with the admission office of the school you decide to apply to. But again, I think it's possible to learn a language in a short time frame if you put in the effort and then if you use the tools and the resources that are available. But I think full immersion is definitely the best way to pick up a language. There's another question regarding work visas. So the biggest concern I have while doing an MBA in Europe is the work visa restrictions, and also how easy it is to do an MBA in Europe and move back to North America. Okay, so yes, that is actually a question that is often addressed to us, because it's true that being a continent with so many different countries and different rules and regulations, it's not always easy to understand the rules regarding work visas. So basically, again, with that, I think it's best to check with each school you apply to. But the rule basically in France, I can speak for France, is that you would be on a student visa for the duration of your study and would be entitled to stay on for a certain amount of time once you graduate to find a job. And when you find a job, the company sponsors your work visa. So yes, it's possible to get a work visa, and you know, depending on the country, I know that some markets are more difficult. The UK at the moment tends to be a difficult market to get a visa. But overall, I mean, we have examples of North American students each year who graduate here, get a job in Europe and stay on, and others who decide to go back to North America. And regarding job prospects in North America, what you may know is that most European business schools have growing networks all around the world. But more than that, most European schools have partnerships with business schools in the US, and thus you would have the opportunity to take part in an exchange program with a US or a Canadian school, and that would give you also access to that school's network of alumni. And I think in that case, if you're looking at a career in North America, while still wanting that international exposure, well, then that's something I would encourage you to do, is pursue your MBA in Europe and take advantage of the exchange programs that the school has with US or Canadian institutions. Speaking of ESSEC, For example, we have partnerships with many schools in the US, be it Chicago Booth, be it Kellogg, be it NYU. I mean, there are many schools out there, and I think, yeah, it's definitely something you should consider. Now, coming to ESSEC Business School, just briefly to give you an overview of our MBA program. So who has this MBA program been designed for? Basically, I mentioned earlier on in my presentation, mainly professionals who are looking at enhancing or switching their careers. People who are interested in gaining that international exposure they may not have. And people who want to challenge themselves, move out of their comfort zone, learn more about how business can be done elsewhere. The minimum work experience we require for admission to our full-time MBA program is 3 to 4 years. That would be full-time work experience after you graduate from your bachelor, after your undergraduate studies. And the average work experience on our program is 6 years, and that I think would be slightly higher than what you would get in most North American schools. And as far as educational background is concerned, we require a minimum of a bachelor's degree. If we look at the program structure, it is a 12-month program. We have one intake in September of each year, so we are currently accepting applications for our September 2014 intake. The school is located, as I said, in Paris and Singapore, so the MBA program is carried out on both campuses. It is compulsory to spend time in both Paris and Singapore, and I will run you through shortly through the curriculum for you to better understand how we have included both locations in the curriculum. You'll also see 2 other locations because we also organize study trips and consulting projects in different countries around the world. So all in all, if you pursue the Global MBA program at ESSEC, you will get to spend time in 4 different countries. Language requirement, as I said, English, it's all fully taught in English. The class size, 40 to 60 students, which is relatively small in comparison to some of the larger schools in the US. But again, I think, as I mentioned in the presentation, I really think this is a strength in a lot of European schools. So if we look at the curriculum, as I said, 12-month full-time, and basically the year is divided into terms. You arrive in September. We organize a few integration weeks where you will have activities focusing on team building and leadership. A lot of those activities will take place outside campus and give you the opportunity also to spend some time in different areas in France. Then we'll start with the core courses. We start with the core courses in October, and basically, as you see, we have 3 terms. One runs from October to December, mandatory core courses in that term. The second term runs from January to March, where you will also have to take part in some mandatory core courses, and that term is carried out in Singapore. And the third term you will come back to France, where you will take part in both core courses and elective courses. That is also when we organize a field trip. The field trip, the purpose of this field trip is to take you to an emerging market for you to gain understanding and knowledge of what an emerging market is, and visit companies and gain more insight. So this year's study trip will be organized in South Africa, and that changes each year. In the summer you will be working on a consulting project, which would be the equivalent to an internship. It's just slightly shorter, and it's something that you work on in groups, so 3 to 5 students per group, and the projects are assigned by the school, and they cover different topics. But this is your I would say, hands-on experience, and the company you are working for sends you in groups to different locations to work on the given project. And finally, in September is the wrap-up and the graduation. And as I mentioned earlier on, you have the possibility to take part in an exchange program if you wish, and that would extend the length of your MBA program to 15 months, so you would be able to go and spend 3 months from September to December with one of our partners. So as you can see, it's a very intense program, and I think that's something you'll get again in most European schools. Programs being shorter, the experience tends to be more intense and probably with a heavier workload. But I think if you're ready for that, I mean, there's no reason why you wouldn't succeed in such a program. If you look at career services, I think that's another very important aspect in an MBA course, and something you should definitely be considering when looking at the different schools. The network of alumni, the network of companies the school works with, and the type of interaction you can expect as a student. As far as ESSEC Business School is concerned, and specifically for our full-time MBA program, we offer dedicated and personalized career coaching, and that's something that we can do very effectively, because again our cohorts are smaller in size than some other schools, and we also have put in place a mentoring program where each of our MBA students are assigned a mentor for the year, that person being an ESSEC alum, and that person will help you gain access to the network of alumni. You will have opportunities to interact with companies through job fairs, through company visits, through networking sessions. And just to give you an idea of the companies we work with, I have listed a few there, some being multinationals, some being more domestic focused, or at least French companies. If you look at the likes of L'Oreal or Louis Vuitton, Total, they would be French companies, but then of course we have all the major multinationals as well. Finally, regarding admission and application details, I just wanted to give you a little bit of insight and advice on that. As far as ESSEC is concerned, our application deadline is May 31st of each year, so we will be accepting applications for our September 2014 intake until May 31st of this year. All the applications are completed online. It's a pretty standard application process. You will have to answer 6 essay questions, and you will have to provide us with the following documents that are listed: a resume, all your transcripts, a copy of your degrees, and 3 letters of professional recommendation, a TOEFL or IELTS score for non-native English speakers, and a GMAT or GRE score for all applicants. And if your application file is selected, we will invite you to an interview, and that will be the final step of the process. Again, just to give you a little insight on what our cohort looks like for the 2013-2014 class, I have given you the list of nationalities represented in the program. As you can see, it's very diverse there again. As I said earlier on, the work experience, the average work experience tends to be quite high, over 6 years, with an interesting mixture of industries represented. We don't have any preference in terms of prior work experience, whether you've been working in banking or in consulting or in manufacturing, in the entertainment or hospitality industries. What matters to us is the quality of your work experience, the type of exposure you have had, the projects you've been working on, and most importantly, your motivations to pursue an MBA, and what type of career you would be interested in upon graduation. So I think that sums it up. A few elements again regarding tuition and financing. but I think that's something, you know, if you're interested in finding out more, I'd be happy to answer questions. But just so that you have an idea, roughly our tuition fees are at €38,000, and there's an international fee of €7,000 that covers all the study trips and then the Singapore term. And of course we offer scholarships, and there are some loans available through the alumni fund also. But I would be available to answer all those questions regarding funding by email or by phone if you wish to find out more. Now, moving on to the questions and answers, I see a few questions coming up already. Is work experience required to pursue an MBA at ESSEC? Yes, it is. As I said, we require a minimum of 3 to 4 years work experience. I have another question regarding alumni from our business school. How is the job market for the fresh MBA graduates who come from abroad, particularly from South Asia? Okay, so that's an interesting question. I would like to, first I'd like to say that we have roughly about 40%, 35 to 40% of our students are from Asia. So that's not necessarily Southeast Asia, but Asia as a whole. And about half of those students, when they become graduates, return to Asia, and the other half move internationally. That can be either in Europe or the Middle East or elsewhere. So the job market, as I said, varies depending on the countries you are looking at within Europe. For example, we have examples of graduates from South Asia that have found jobs in France, that have found jobs in countries like Belgium, like the Netherlands, and we have, of course, a lot of people as well who are interested in Singapore. And because we have a campus in Singapore, and because our MBA students spend time out there, they manage as well to find good job opportunities out in Singapore. I have another question regarding family. Okay, so I'm married and my wife and kid will be accompanying me. Would that be an issue? Not at all, no issue whatsoever. We actually have, I would say, over a third of our MBA students who are in a similar situation each year, and so we're used to welcoming participants with their family. I think, you know, it's very important when pursuing your MBA to have the entire support of your family, because it's important to understand that you as an MBA student, you'll have a lot going on, quite a heavy workload and a lot of travel involved as well. But as long as I would say your wife and children are aware of that and they support you, I think it's great for them also to take part in this experience and gain that international exposure. And I think Paris as a city is a great city to live in and experience. So of course I would encourage you to come with your wife and child. I have a question regarding the GMAT score. What is the average GMAT score required for ESSEC Global MBA? So our average GMAT score is 640, 650. Saying that we haven't actually stated a minimum requirement. What usually happens is we review your application based on the overall quality of it, and if we feel that your GMAT score is a little low or doesn't do you justice, we will contact you and ask you to retake it before we interview you. But generally the range, when we look at at the GMAT scores for people enrolled in the ESSEC Global MBA, it ranges from 580 to 700 plus. Do I have any other questions? Yes, there's a question regarding application fee for completing the online form. We don't have any application fee. So you can start an application at any time and complete it, submit it when you're ready. The first fee you will have to pay is the enrollment fee once you have been admitted. If you want to book a seat on the program, you will have to pay a 5,000 euro fee. But for the application, there's no fee required. I have a question regarding the resume that you need to attach to your application. Does ESSEC prefer a one-page or a two-page resume? Generally speaking, in Europe, again, it differs. Each country has a preference. In France, at least, and so for ESSEC, we prefer a one-page resume. There is a question, so two questions from okay, sorry, yes, I have two questions here. So first, if I take an exchange program in a US business school, will I be eligible to get a work permit in the US? My second question, other things being equal, does an employer prefer someone who speaks French? Okay, that is an interesting question. And I will start with your second question. Yes, I think that's a very good point. I think it's important to understand that in most European countries, it's important to learn the local language. It will definitely give you an advantage. So although it's not a requirement to gain admission into most business schools, it may become a requirement when it comes to employment. So because in any case you'll be given that opportunity to learn the language, I would recommend that you do so, definitely. And the examples we have of graduates, of international graduates that have found jobs in France, for example, are often people who have made the effort of learning some French. Now they won't be fluent, but they'll have at least basic French, and that can make a difference when it comes to employment. And regarding the work permit in the US, I'm not quite sure what the situation is as an exchange student. That's something I would have to look into, to be honest with you. I know that a lot of our MBA students apply for exchange programs in the US and then do get into the programs. Now whether that makes them eligible to get a work permit, I'm not quite sure. That's something I would have to check with our international relations department. I have another question regarding the application acceptance rate. What is the application acceptance rate? Basically, we accept 1 in 3 applicants. That's the rate. I mean, in terms of admission, yes, it's 1 in 3, roughly. I have another question regarding GMAT waiver. Is it possible to waive the GMAT requirement for a highly experienced candidate? No, that is not a policy we have at ESSEC Business School. We require a GMAT score for each applicant. GMAT are GRE, by the way, but we cannot waive the GMAT exam. Another question regarding accommodation facilities during Paris and Singapore. So as far as Paris is concerned, we have several halls of residence here on campus, and all international students can avail of those. Generally what happens, the trend I see with international students is that they tend to spend the first term here on campus, and then later on they might move, they might find apartments that they wish to share and move more centrally in central Paris. But again, yes, we do have, I mean, there are enough apartments there available for all our international students. And when it comes to Singapore, the school provides accommodation, so you don't need to search for accommodation while you are in Singapore. I have another question regarding exchange programs offered by the school, and more specifically, do we have any tie-ups with IIMs in India? Yes, we do. We have an exchange program with IIM Ahmedabad, for example. When it comes to exchange programs, actually, I should maybe be a little more specific about the requirement. What happens is there are a certain amount of seats available for each exchange program each year, and so it's a selective process. You will apply and you will be interviewed by the International Relations Department, and so you will apply. You can choose to apply to different schools, and based on the quality of your application file and how well you do in the interview process, you can hopefully be admitted to one or several of the exchange programs you have applied to. I have another question regarding CFA level. Is clearing CFA level 1 before applying strengthening to a student's profile for admission, provided they are applying for an MBA in finance? That's a good question, and yes, I would say regarding specific masters in finance or MBAs that offer a concentration specifically in finance, yes, it would be an asset to have cleared the CFA level 1. Now there's another question regarding placement prospects. This is an interesting question. Will we start at a junior analyst level or associate level once we join any firm? Now I think that's one thing you need to bear in mind when it comes to career opportunities and placement. It's going to very much depend on your prior work experience, and I think that's why I mean, the emphasis is placed on already having at least 3 to 4 years work experience, because most of our graduates tend to find management type positions when they graduate, but that is due to the fact that they already have several amounts, I would say several years of work experience before joining the MBA program, and that makes the difference. So if you don't have that prior work experience, it's going to be very difficult for you, even with an MBA degree, to go straight into a management level position. Another question regarding the cost of the program, total cost of the program. What is the total cost of attendance for your Global MBA program? So as I explained in the presentation, fees plus the international fee amounts to €45,000, which is roughly $60,000. And you would need to add to that your living expenses, accommodation, transport, etc., etc. So altogether you are looking at probably $55,000 to $60,000, roughly 80,000. Sorry, 55 to 60,000 euros, roughly $80,000. I have another question regarding the type of profile we're looking for. Overall, does ESSEC look for a certain type of candidate? What advice would you give prospective candidates who think they do not have a strong enough application? Yeah, that's a very good question. I think now if you meet the requirements in terms of work experience, in terms of academic background, in terms of the different tests that we require you take, I think what will set you apart from other candidates is your ability to convince the admission committee that this program or this school is the right fit for you in terms of where it can bring you career-wise. And that means having done the appropriate research, understanding where the expertise of the specific school lies. I think you need to see this as a win-win situation, and I think schools are first and foremost looking for people who are going to be very quickly employable upon graduation. And so having done your soul searching, being focused enough in that you know you know what type of position you will be looking for upon graduation, you will very quickly be able to use the tool and resources provided by the school and start doing your networking and searching for jobs. Bear in mind that in a 12-month time frame there's a lot going on. It's very intense, and if you have done that prior soul searching, it will be all the better and all the easier for you. So I would say yes, definitely being focused, having done your that soul searching, and being able to convince the school, the admission committee, that you know what you're looking for with this particular MBA program. Okay, I have another question regarding our MIM program, our Master of Science in Management program for freshers with just 2 years experience. I'm very briefly going to describe this program. It is a very good alternative for people who don't have the necessary amount of work experience for an MBA program. It is a 2-year program, minimum 2 to 3 years. It is a very flexible program in that it will allow you to do both core and elective courses, choose to go on an exchange with another business school, complete several internships, and I think that's really what sets it apart from the MBA programs. Is in order to graduate from the MIM program, the Master of Science in Management, you will have to complete a minimum of I think it's 9 or 12 months internship, and so with that you will graduate having more work experience and more international work experience, which is more, and I think that's really good for somebody who is looking at gaining further experience. So what we see in the MIM program is that we mainly welcome the international students that we welcome are mainly freshers, and some might have a little experience. They might have completed an internship, or 6-month or 9-month internship, but they are going to use the opportunity given to them by ESSEC to complete other internships in several countries, be it in Europe or elsewhere, and also possibly go on exchange programs. In terms of applications for this program, we also require a GMAT score. There is also an interview as part of the process, and as far as applications are concerned, you can apply up until end of March of this year for a September intake there again. There is another question regarding the degree you would receive at ESSEC upon graduation. Well, that very much depends on the program you enroll for. Either an MBA, it's an MBA degree if you pursue the full-time MBA. If you decide to pursue the Master of Science in Management, then it will be a Master's in Management degree, etc., etc. I mean, we offer different types of programs, and with that we have different types of degrees. I have another question regarding opportunities, job opportunities in Europe, and also entrepreneurship. Can you please provide your perspective on the post-work permit in European countries, and what is the class ratio of students taking up opportunities in European countries? And also, how much emphasis does ESSEC put on entrepreneurship? Okay, so regarding job opportunities in Europe, as I mentioned earlier on, it varies from country to country. We roughly have a third of our graduates who find jobs in Europe, some in France, some in other countries. And again, as I said earlier on, finding a job means that the company accepts to sponsor your work permit, and that is often the case. It happens. Last year, just to give you an example, we had several international students who got jobs here in France upon graduation. Just to give you a specific example, one of our US graduates got a job working for OECD in Paris, and her work permit was of course funded by OECD. If we look at entrepreneurship, and that's an interesting question, because the trend as we look at MBA applicants, we welcome more and more participants in our MBA program who hold an interest in entrepreneurship, in setting up a business, be it short-term or long-term. And so yes, of course, we encourage entrepreneurship. There are several opportunities here at ESSEC as a student to work on a future venture. There are classes provided such as writing a business plan. There are entrepreneurship clubs. So of course, yes, it's something we value as a school. Now, saying that, the program, the MBA program, is a general MBA, so it doesn't have a specific focus on entrepreneurship. So maybe if you're really looking for a specialized program, there may be other programs that would be better suited to what you are looking for. I have a question regarding diversity. What is the diversity proportion in terms of nationality for the MBA? For the 12-month MBA, we have over 20 nationalities represented in our full-time MBA here at ESSEC Business School. Okay. Well, thank you all for joining today, and thank you for your questions, and I hope I have been able to offer further insight into what you can expect as a student here in Europe. Of course, you're more than welcome to contact me by email. You will find all my contacts on our website, and again, I would like to wish you best of luck with your applications. And please feel free to request either a maybe an introduction to some current students, some graduates. Like as I said earlier, I can only encourage you to speak to as many people as possible, and possibly people who have experienced an MBA in Europe, because they will be the best ambassadors. Thank you for your time. Have a great day ahead, and I look forward to hearing back from you. Bye-bye.